So this is a little bit of a tutorial for men to have success with women while dating and in the romantic realm. And as a Tantra teacher, I wanted to share some things with the men that will be empowering. So one of the things that one of the Tantra school teaches, which is called Kwadoshka, they're based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and it's the Native American shamanic version of Tantra, because you'll find that a lot of cultures have their own version of Tantra. So anyway, one thing that's helpful to know and that's unique about their system is that they go over the 9 different anatomy types of men and women. And it was really fascinating to learn that there are, 9 different anatomy types out there in general that you men will be working with when you're trying to be intimate with a woman. And that can sometimes be confusing because I think we're given the impression that it's one size fits all kind of thing, and that's not at all the case. So they teach in medicine wheels, and they cover that there's basically 4 different types, and then there's 4 types that are a cross between 2 other types, meaning they're a little bit like one and a little bit like the other. And then there's one that they put in the middle of the circle of the medicine wheel. And of course, it's not a sure science. There's variations and stuff, but it gives you a general idea of what the variations are and just to be aware of it. So for instance, I am what's called an antelope woman, because they, of course, the Native Americans, they like to have a totem animal that they call, for each type. And the antelope woman is a cross between the deer and the wolf. And so basically, there's different sizes of the labia, there's different placement as to where the clitoris is, there's different placement as to where the G-spot is inside. And just the overall look, of the genital area, it just varies. So feel comfortable in asking and being clear on where, if you're with a new partner, of asking, is this your clitoris? And making sure that that's the right spot, because they all look different and are somewhat hidden sometimes and somewhat out in the open. And it's really key to, know some of that basic anatomy. And then, some of the interesting variations are that, a lot of times we're taught that the G-spot is just like right inside and up a little bit. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it's really deep inside and hard to reach, in the case of the fox woman. And then mine, for instance, which is part of the deer woman and often the antelope woman, is that our G-spot is right at the opening. So it's really not far inside at all, and it's easily accessible. And there's different tendencies and preferences that go with each of the types. So different positions, for instance, will work better for some types versus others, because anatomically we have different size openings. We have different depth inside our vagina, and we have varying things that work for those different anatomy types. For instance, if you put a large man inside one of the smaller types of women, it's likely to be kind of painful and not real comfortable for her. And likewise, if you get a large woman who has a pretty large opening, and then you get a small or average male, it's not going to do as much for her because she can't feel him and it's not rubbing against the sides. So interesting to note. And certain positions will work better for some than others. It might be painful for others. I know one thing that's common with the wolf type woman, which I am half of, is that we tend to have a tilted pelvis. So sometimes a certain position, like on our back with our legs up, for instance, might be a little bit more intense for us than other women. And, it oftentimes really boils down to communication, because you have to be willing to talk about these things. And there's been such a code of silence and non-communication, I know, in my parents' generations and back, and it's now coming to a place where we can openly talk about what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and, being comfortable asking questions and, oh, does this feel good, or does this feel right, or is this okay with you? And, another thing, men, sometimes you don't realize, because you just sometimes assume that we're rigged the same way you are, is that women's energy flows down the system, whereas your energy flows up the system. So in flowing up, your genitals are kind of hit first as a man, and usually if you get a yes to a woman in your genitals, then you pretty much take care of the rest later. Whereas because women have our energy running down, we have to get a yes in our mind, we have to get a yes in our heart, before we make it all the way down to our genitals, and then we can perhaps be a yes. But if we're getting a no here and a no here and it's not feeling safe, it's hard for us to get turned on. So that's something to consider, because in turning on a woman, you're not going to go straight for her genitals or her breasts. That's a little bit fast. We're a little bit more slow cookers. We need some warming up. We need to know it's safe, that you're not just trying to get laid, because we can pick up on all that stuff, and we do. We're intuitive, and we know, and you may think you're getting, trying to put one over on us, but deep down we feel into all that stuff. So the way to really work successfully with a woman is, for instance, to start with massage. So if you feel good in giving massage, then that's a really good first step where she's getting a yes, because it feels good, and so she wants to continue. If you don't know how to massage and it doesn't feel good, your touch doesn't feel good, then you need to overcome that and get better at it, because that's a really basic way that a woman can tell if this is going to be a good choice for her. Massage is a great way to start. And then, starting from the top of the body down is what works for women. Opposite for men. So that means you're going to be, massaging her hair and her scalp and her head, and, kind of taking over the steering wheel, in a sense, is how it feels to me. And being tender, with her face, and massaging. Kissing is the most common way to access her from the beginning, because she needs to have this activated before the rest of her body can be activated, because that's how she gets activated, is from the top down. So you can't skip kissing. It just doesn't really work. It feels like, I've had it done before, where it just feels like a man is skipping steps, and it's like all out of order. And of course, men, you're not rigged this way, so you wouldn't know unless you're taught. So obviously, if you're starting with kissing, that's kind of like turning the key in the ignition. It just works that way. And then you can work your way down, and you might not want to go straight for the breasts after that. It's best to warm up her body first before you start going for her privates and her sexual areas. So there's a few tips. Women, I think, a lot of times have not really been taught to be too verbal about their sexuality, as far as what they like and what they don't like, and they might not even be in touch enough with what they like and what they don't like. They may not have enough experience or self-knowledge yet, depending on how young they are and experienced they are. So that's where questions really help, guys. You can ask her questions and make sure that you're checking in with her, and is this okay, or does this feel good? Is there something you'd like better? And If you're really at ease and not in a hurry, which is the tantric way, just to be very present and not to have some end result in mind, but just enjoy the journey and wherever it goes for that evening together, is something she picks up on energetically. Women can pick up on whether men are safe, they feel at ease, or whether they feel like, some men just feel like their energy is invasive, or kind of like coming at the woman, and that's an immediate barrier. And there's even certain cultures that I find have that kind of energy where they just come at you and they're kind of in your space and they're not really warming up to you and giving you time to sort of check them out. So all these things are useful in your success with women, and try it out and see how it works.